Welcome, folks. This is a new podcast, Magic the Grappling with Ford Fisher. We're going to be joined today by Magic Master, Merfolk Master to be correct, Nikachu on Magic Online and Magic Arena. This podcast is going to be brought to you by Lion CBD.com and ManaTraders.com. My promo code is moon_6R4 for 15% off your first 3 months. Thank you very much for joining me today, Nikachu. I'm going to switch you right over here. And all right, we are on the right screen, and hopefully everybody can see you and hear you.
Thank you very much, Ford. Thanks for having me over. I'd love to talk some Magic.
Yeah, well, what we're going to do today is a little word association, and I'm going to start off with something maybe you don't know as much about, but you are from a town that is historically known for it, is professional wrestling. Do you know anything about it, and what does it mean to you?
Oh, you know what? I haven't watched wrestling in a long time, but let me tell you, wrestling actually has a place in my heart. I was binging that stuff when I was a kid around it was a long time ago. We're talking 27 years ago. But I mean, I watched the WWF every time. I watched the SummerSlams, the WrestleManias, the Royal Rumbles, the King of the, what is it called?
King of the Ring.
King of the Ring. That's right. I actually watched quite a bit of wrestling back then. I was heartbroken when, what was it, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall moved to WCW, and I snap dumped watching professional wrestling ever since. I was very heartbroken. Those were Diesel and Razor Ramon were my absolute favorite professional wrestlers at the time. But you know what? I do actually have a place in my heart for professional wrestling.
That's great to hear. I'm so happy to hear about that. Diesel and Razor, I loved Razor myself, with that ladder match with Shawn Michaels. That was around that time that you were watching, I think, right?
I watched it live. It live. It was an epic battle.
Now, I know in Europe, and I don't know about Canada, they have Sky Sports, or they did back then, and they got the pay-per-views on there for free. Was that same case for you at all, or?
No, we paid for the pay-per-view.
Okay.
The only pay-per-view. I watched like the pay-per-view, I don't know, trailer maybe a million times on pay-per-view, knowing that the wrestling was coming. And they would even have the countdown. WrestleMania is going to start in like 1 hour. And, I loved it back then. I loved it.
So that was 93, 94. So there are two specific pro wrestlers that are in the business right now that are from Winnipeg. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
I know one of them because he's even in the paper every so often. The infamous Chris Jericho.
Oh, okay, that's number one. Now the other one.
No one. Now another one I don't know about. I don't know. I didn't know there's a second one.
His name is Kenny Omega, and he just came from. He was mainly in Japan. He got famous there, and he just won the world title in the new company that's on TNT, the channel TNT AEW. He just won the world title in that company. So he's a pretty big deal. So you may hear a little bit more about him in your hometown papers here soon.
Might happen.
All right. So what I wanted to do was we got a little bit of pro wrestling in, and I can tell that you loved it, and it's in your heart, and you haven't really watched it much in the past, recently. So we're going to move on.
You know what? You know what? Actually, I'm going to be honest. I think it was like a few months ago, I binged like a bunch of like the wrestling intro theme musics of like even like a lot of the current like old and even current pro wrestlers. I don't know what it was. I was just okay. Let's watch this old stuff.
Well, they had they had like the My Sacrifice videos, like from Creed and different things like that. Different compilation videos of the wrestlers and back in those days, like the Hardy Boys and all that. Yeah.
You can even watch anything on YouTube these days. I think they basically got everything.
Seriously, I'm hoping we can get a couple views with this podcast here on YouTube.
There you go. Exactly.
All right, so what I'm going to do is we're going to move along and move on to something that I know you know a lot more about, and that is Magic the Gathering. So when did you start playing? What set did you start playing with? Did you buy packs, singles, what?
Well, I mean, back in the day, okay, so I started right when Invasion was coming out. I don't know, maybe it came out quite a few months afterwards, but like I remember when I was getting into Magic, Invasion was the new big set. So that was around 1999, and oh man, there weren't many stores back then to buy singles. There was a store, but it was like out of my range of getting to. I was like 12 years old at the time, or like 12, 13-ish. very difficult for me to get to some awkward places in the city by bus by myself. I didn't, and anyway, so my only route to getting cards was cracking the packs, and B, winning tournaments to earn packs, crack them, and then trade them. And I traded on, and honestly, to get my singles, it was brutal. But I was trading with people online. You would mail them cards, they mail them back to you, and they mail you your stuff. And that's basically how I started to like build decks and get what I needed.
Gosh, and you were real young doing that in 99, 2000. I mean, you were probably a teenager, like 14 or so, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we're talking like 13, 14. That's when I started.
Well, I did similarly. I did the same thing. I actually remember trading for Mystic Snakes online. They're an old Apocalypse card, if anybody remembers that, through a website called EssentialMagic.com. And we would, do the same thing that we do these days, but in a lot more primitive way.
I didn't know that site existed. I used Magic the Gathering online. It's like MOTL League or something like that. Magic Online Trader League. I don't know if they're still around. They're probably not. I don't know. But there was another website that we traded on.
Well, yeah, Essential Magic itself is on life support right now. I check it every once in a while. But either way, so today I know this is ironic. I'm glad that I'm interviewing you today. Today you ended up getting a 5-0 on your stream with Merfolk. And
that's right.
In modern format, and it's with a new combo with Pure Sight Marrow and Paradise Mantle. Yes,
that's right.
What a great card! And so I know Pithing Needle was in your sideboard. You had a lot of good, tech in your side. What do you think was your best sideboard card that came in most of the time? Like
best sideboard cards? I don't know if my sideboard helped that much. I mean, the best sideboard card was basically Force Negation anytime it was up against the control decks. But I think for the most part, the best cards were in my main deck. That Paradise Mantle was like the Paradise Mantle plus Pure Sight Marrow was such a beating to all my opponents, just scrying exactly what I need on the top, and gave me some turn 3 victories, and if not turn 3, turn 4 kills without having to attack into my opponent.
Well, and I know in paper it'd be a lot easier to do this because you just present the combo and people say, oh, okay, here you go. But
so for anyone who is not familiar, because you watched it live, but so the combo is that we're going to use Thassa's Oracle, which we see it in Ad Nauseam, we see it in Neo Brand decks, blue Merfolk creature, ETB. You basically look at the top X cards equal to your devotion of blue, and then if there are less than or equal to your devotion cards left in your library, you win the game. So any deck that can draw their entire deck wins the game when they play Thassa's Oracle. And Merfolk couldn't really do that. But there is this combo between Paradise Mantle and Pure Sight Marrow. So Pure Sight Marrow is a hybrid blue-white, but it's 2 CMC, 2/2 Merfolk creature that just happens to have this ability that if you untap it, not tap it, if you pay 1 blue or 1 white to untap it, and you get to look at the top card of your library and you get the option to exile it. Now, Paradise Mantle is an equipment for 0 mana. You pay 1 mana to equip. In equipped creature can be tapped for a mana. So the combo is you equip the Pure Sight Marrow with Paradise Mantle, tap it for a mana, and then you spend that mana to untap it and exile the top card of your library. And then you can rinse and repeat this process throughout your entire deck. So tap, untap, exile, tap, untap, exile, until there's no cards left in your deck, or you are digging for Thassa's Oracle, draw it, either that turn or the next turn, and then combo off on the following turn.
Yep, that is such an annoying combo, and I really wouldn't ever want to play it. But you know what? You've got so much other aggro in it, and that's what passes my test. The only thing that sticks out to me, on top of the combo, I know you're catching people off guard with it. They don't really know what's going on until it's already happening, right?
Yes. So, I mean, I definitely won some games because my opponent, they could have interacted with it, but they didn't know what was happening. And then until it was too late, then I just won.
Now, that card's from Shadowmoor, I believe, right? Originally.
Yep. Yeah. Pure Sight Marrow.
Tell you, Shadowmoor, the years go by, and a card comes out every few years from that set, and it's just fantastic. I mean, there's so many killer cards from that set. And when it was in standard, Demigod of Revenge was one of the best cards you could find. But now
Right.
that's one of the least cards you really care about in that, because Modern has just changed the format.
Hmm.
Um, let's see. We can move right along here. Wanted to talk about. Oh, you mentioned this in your Twitch stream because I caught the tail end of it. But you've put in Smuggler's Copter, and so you were talking about maybe if you don't want to use the combo, you can just pitch the Paradise Mantle. Did you ever
Yes.
run into doing that? Did that work for you?
Yes, definitely. Or ditching extra copies of any cards that I don't need. One key thing about this deck is that it's playing with Lurrus in the sideboard as a companion.
Yeah.
So how do I have more power in my deck that can push damage as a normal Merfolk playing? Because the thing that makes this deck tick is that I can still play a normal Merfolk game, Silver Gilladepts and Lords, and attack you, but I randomly can combo off against you. And so the deal is, how do I fit Lurrus in this? Because I do like the idea of Lurrus to bring back combo pieces from the graveyard and also to fight against attrition-based decks. And one of those ideas is we don't have Reejerey, because that's 3 CMC.
Right.
Lurrus doesn't let me play with it. So I play with Copter instead. So it's a way of pushing damage, but also to loot away really useless copies of Paradise Mantle if it's like really bad, or even Thassa's Oracle if it's completely useless. Happened a lot. But it was also just a really good source of damage, that dodge sweeper effect. And yeah, it's just a really, really strong card.
And that's what we would call back in the mid '90s a good beat stick.
Good beat stick, that's
I
right.
tell you, that's a great card. And so, with the addition of Smuggler's Copter, it made you
Hmm.
lose Spreading Seas, right?
You know what? The combo made me lose Spreading Seas. So
Okay.
yeah, if we have to make sacrifices, I need to sacrifice something to shove 4 Thassa's Oracle, 4 Pure Sight Marrow, 4 Paradise Mantle, while still having the soul of a Merfolk deck, which is like Ether Vials, Silver Gilladept, Lord of Atlantis, Master of the Pearl Trident. Um, so I did have to like basically push away any of the maybe I would say fringe cards, and honestly Spreading Seas is just not as good as it used to be.
Really?
It's gotten weaker because there's a lot of decks that either can use the blue, like the Hero decks. Then there's the Mono Red Prowess deck, which it won't mana screw at all. It's relatively ineffective. Sometimes the Island Walk is nice, but so the deal is, the way I was thinking about it is, I could have one of two things. I could have Island Walk to help me win the game, or I have a combo that helps me win the game. So
Yeah.
between prioritizing those two, I prioritize the combo.
That's a very good trade off. I agree with that. So now you've got Chalice in the main deck.
Hmm.
Is that normally coming out on 1 or 0?
Yeah, it's coming out on 1. So I have the deck is like filled with 2 drops. With the only 1 drop I have is Ether Vial. And the only way I could figure I could compete with Prowess or Shadow or maybe other decks that are really lean to the ground was that I had Chalice in the main deck. So it's definitely coming out on 1.
Okay, and Oops All Spells. I know that's kind of the boogeyman these
Hmm.
days.
Yep.
Is that a huge problem still, or is just Force of Negation going to
I
stop it? Or
Force of Negation will slow them down because I can counter only the mana rocks. That is fine. The best cards would be things like Pithing Needle in the sideboard, where you name Salvage Titan. And then even if they mill their entire deck, they depend on Salvage Titan coming back from the graveyard to their hand. They recast it to trigger the Vengevines. And so long as Pithing Needle is naming Salvage Titan, they'll never trigger their Vengevines, and they'll basically deck themselves in a few turns. So that is a key piece of sideboard tech. But I was up against Oops All Spells in a separate league, and I just raced them by comboing off against them. They're setting up their combo. I'm like, nope, I'm just as fast as you, and I'm also a combo deck. And I comboed off against them.
oh, I love it. I bet their jaw was on the floor.
Exactly. How did this happen? I thought I had a lot of time. My life
Um,
total's at 20. That's the thing. Like, I can just combo off. And you know what? People are a little bit more apt to tap out because of this. Like, I've seen it. Like, I have a Vial on 2, and they just tap out because, like, what bad could happen if they tap out? And then I Vial in Pure Sight Marrow at end of turn. It doesn't have Summoning Sickness on my turn. I cast Paradise Mantle, I equip it, and then I have a Thassa's Oracle in my hand, and I win the game.
oh well, that's huge having Vile and yeah. That's what wins the
Hmm.
game then. Gosh, that I cannot wait to do this because I have a Manitraders account myself, and the second I saw you streaming with it and you said you got a 5.0, I returned whatever the hell garbage I had, and I rented that deck right off the bat. So I'm gonna play that tonight for sure and have a lot of
Oh,
fun with
that's
it.
sweet.
My other question I had, I didn't really catch the matches that you played. Caught the tail
Hmm.
end of it, you know. So, did you run into any Blood Moon? Or are you scared of Blood Moon at all? With
I'm
your,
very scared of Blood Moon, but
yeah,
I've adapted the mana base to be okay. So, for example, I noticed with Simic Merfolk, if I have 7 islands in my deck, the deck does okay against Blood Moon. Sometimes they Blood Moon you out, but between 4 Ether Vial, 7 islands, you usually have enough game against Blood Moon, even if they play it. Maybe sometimes you don't have the islands, but it's not the greatest mana base. I think 10 islands is the best, but 7 is okay. So it's a good hedge of having Lurrus, but not dying stone dead to Blood Moon. I also think I have a lot of cards I can play underneath a Blood Moon, like Smuggler's Copter, for example. So even with my colorless mana, I'll be able to cast Smuggler's Copter, and the like equipping costs colorless, of course. So if I vial in Pure Sight Marrow, I can still play the equipment, attach it, and then vial in a Thassa's Oracle when I'm ready to combo off.
okay, well that's a good idea. I talked to Lord Magicus and a couple other the
Hmm.
Merfolk people that are on Discord, and they're really nice and welcoming, and they've told me more about your utility lands that you want to be using, and I don't know about Wanderwine Hub in this deck. I mean, I can't, how can I question you right now? You got a 5.0, but Wanderwine Hub, I think maybe you could go with 4 Mutavault instead, and I like the Dark Slick Shores, and maybe put like the Castle Ventress back in there or something like that. What do you think about that?
So the Wonderwine Hub is just basically a way of casting Lurrus, because I
Okay.
think that this deck's biggest problem is going to be attrition-based decks, and I've been for a long time trying to jam Lurrus in Merfolk, but I didn't find a build that sort of looked even remotely good to me. Um, but then I started toying around with 2 builds, one without this combo, and then one with it.
Okay.
And then when I started experimenting with the combo, I'm like, hey, I just comboed off against this player. This is not too bad. And then I did it again in another match. I'm like, maybe there's something to this that
I'm
I had
on
to
to
stream
something.
off. Yeah, then I had I was in the queue, so it wasn't the toughest competition. All right, let's up the stakes. I played in a league. And again, I comboed off against an Amulet Titan player, and I comboed off against an Ad Nauseum player, and I comboed off against Heliod Company. And I ended up losing to Uro because I couldn't beat counter spells.
Okay.
I mean, I have Ether Vial, but I didn't have Cavern of Souls in my deck at the time. And then I also lost to a Hardened Scales player who basically had their own combo against me, and I just lost to their own synergy. But then I'm really like, okay, maybe we got to try this again. Maybe we're going to make some adjustments. But I think Lurrus is pretty important to the deck. It can get combo pieces back from the graveyard. I had a game against Heliod Company where they couldn't combo off. Infinite Life was useless, and I had a Pithing Needle on Walking Ballista, because if they get Infinite Life, I can beat that with Thassa's Oracle. And
Right.
they kept attacking into me, and I kept blocking with Thassa's Oracle. It went to the graveyard, and then when I bring it back, it dug deep into my deck to look for the missing combo pieces to win. And that was all because of Lurrus. And I imagine against Death Shadow, I'm really going to need Lurrus. So if you take out the Wanderwine hubs, you make it really hard to cast Lurrus. And I think the only reason I would take out Wanderwine hub is if I wanted more islands to play around Blood Moon. But I think Lurrus is going to be worth its weight in gold overall in this deck.
Okay. Well, we can happily see in the future. I mean, this is the first 5.0 of many, hopefully.
Yeah, like I honestly, there could be a lot of changes. I want to play with Gemstone Caverns. Got to test out Gemstone Caverns so that on the draw I could have turn 2 kills potentially, because I'll have an extra mana. I go turn 1 Pure Sight Marrow, turn 2 uh, Paradise Mantle into Thassa's Oracle and win the game.
Oh, that would be brutal.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh. And yeah, and those things went up in paper. I remember when you were playing with them about two or
Yeah,
three years ago, they were like $7 or $8, and I remember I bought one in paper, and they went up to like 25. It was incredible.
yeah, it's definitely a card that needs a reprint.
I agree with that. A lot of cards need a reprint. Like let's say this Judge version of Mutavault that you've got on your Magic Online. I tell you, we need a couple
Yeah.
of reprints of that one. Well, I think we're about time to wrap it up here. It's been about 20 minutes, and Nikachu, I want to thank you so much. You're going to be the first guest on Magic the Grappling here, and I hope
Love
everybody
it.
enjoyed it. And I will be posting it on YouTube, and hopefully signing up for Spotify and all the other podcast outlets here soon. And I just don't know how to thank you very much, man. You have helped me very much. These are two of my favorite things in my whole life, and I hope other people can share the love.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay. Well, I will see you later, and I'm going to close out here, and we will talk in a couple seconds, okay?
See you next time.
All right, folks. Thank you very much for joining me. This has been Magic the Grappling. It has been brought to you by manatraders.com and Lion CBD.com. My ManaTraders promo code is moon_6R4. You get 15% off for your first 3 months, and stay tuned for future episodes on the YouTube channel. Thank you, thank you, thank you. See you around the bend.